Hey everyone, Nick from Mossy Creek with this week's fly fishing forecast. Today is August 10th. It's Wednesday this week. Sorry we're a little bit behind, but we got a lot of changes in the weather today to talk about. So right now, it's about 2 o'clock this afternoon. We just had a huge storm roll through town right by the shop. Didn't last super long, but it rained really heavy for maybe about 30-45 minutes. Dropped a lot of water. We'll see what that does. We've got a lot of different storms and cells popping up this afternoon, kind of throughout the entire valley. They were originally calling for 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch of rain today, followed by maybe another 1/2 tonight. If we get the upper end of that, it could make some real changes for our streams around here throughout the rest of this week. So we'll keep you updated tomorrow, kind of see what happens for the rest of this evening. Regardless, I would probably expect, a lot of our mountain streams to get a bump. Our spring creeks to get a bump, and we'll see what happens with the river. It's already a little bit saturated from a couple of storms earlier in the week, so it might jump up pretty quick depending on where this rain falls. So kind of on that note, the Shenandoah's been fishing really well. We were at really our lowest point of the summer. We were just below average flow kind of at the end of last week. We got a little bit of rain over the weekend. River bumped a little bit. We're back to just above average flow, but water clarity was really good. I floated kind of right off that bubble yesterday. When we started in the morning, it was pretty stained, and by the end of the day, we were back to really clear, maybe 5-6 feet of viz. So that topwater fishing got better. That low clear water is really key for a lot of our topwater fishing, especially fishing a lot of our more subtle presentations like damselflies and bugs and that kind of stuff. Swim frog fishing was pretty good too, as fish were pretty active. So kind of like we've been preaching the last few weeks, read really what's going on. Don't stick to just a popper all day if fish aren't eating it. There might be times of the day where the topwater's fishing really good. There might be times where you need to go subsurface and you're gonna find a lot more fish. So different bait fish patterns. If we get some high water, stained water, some of your heavier, darker patterns are gonna be helpful as those flows go up. We had been fishing like really light, subtle flies as we were starting to get kind of spooky conditions. Your heavy crayfish flies, black and blue is one of my favorite colors in the water's off color. A black crittermite, some of those dark colors show up really well when we have stained water with a lot of sediment and stuff in it. So, make sure you've got a couple different patterns depending on what happens. Just so you guys know, at least for the South Fork, the Linwood gauge and the Luray gauge are kind of the two main gauges that we check to see what's going on with the water levels. The Luray gauge is more north of us. The Linwood gauge is pretty close to the start of the South Fork, but if you look at both of those, watch the chart, you can get a really good idea of kind of what's going on with the water levels. Right now we're at about 600 CFS, nice and clear. If we see that go way above 1,000 or bumping up, that's where the fishing gets really tough and maybe unfishable for a couple days. So anything significant that happens, we'll let you know. The spring creeks have been pretty much untouched through these last couple days. If some of these isolated storms hit, say Mossy or Beaver really close, especially with how much rain it dropped quickly, we could see things muddy up, which would be really contrasting from what we've seen the last few days. So if it gets really high and muddy, it might be time to pull those streamers out again or heavy nymphs and really dredge, those fish that are out hunting. But, the sight fishing's been awesome other than that. Hopper fishing's been really good. We're actually starting to see some hexes show up in the evening. So, if you've got time, don't leave too early. That last hour, especially 20-30 minutes of daylight can be really good with those big hex spinner falls. The hex is a really big mayfly. Those trout can go crazy for it when they start to get keyed in on it. Last week we started seeing them for the first time. The couple evenings I fished, trout didn't really seem to be keyed in on that, but as they get more prolific throughout the month and into September, that should get hotter and hotter. There's hoppers everywhere. They're still eating beetles, ants, and Tricos, so pretty much a terrestrial game. For the most part, if you're just kind of blind fishing, a hopper dropper is really hard to beat. If you're sight fishing a fish, little Tricos or beetles or ants can be really effective too. So once again, if things really muddy up on either of those streams, we'll let you guys know, but kind of the same thing that we've been preaching for the last week or two. Brook trout streams have been really tough, but they might get a splash of water Dry River got a little bit yesterday on top of what we got today. We might see a couple of those brook trout streams be fishable for a little bit. So those fish are really opportunistic this time of year. They don't have a lot of those big mayfly hatches that they have early in the spring, and so they're kind of looking to eat whatever they can get their hands on. So parachute Adams, royal wolves, some of your smaller terrestrials, little hoppers, beetles, ants, they'll eat those too. Hopper droppers, great if you're not fishing like super low clear water. These storms that we're getting are going to really kind of reset our temperatures. Last few days, especially if you've been on the river, were super hot and humid, mid upper 90s. Looks like from today on all the way through as far as we can see in the 10-day forecast, the warmest day is like 81 degrees. So huge temperature reset. We're looking at like mid to upper 70s, really low 80s for possibly the next 10 days. Couple storms at the beginning of next week, but like I said, real reset. So if you like brook trout fishing, hopefully you get a good splash on the streams you like to fish. Mixed with some lower temperatures, we might get a little bit of that. So as always, if you have any questions, give us a call at the shop. We're happy to help. We're going to try and update you if there's any big changes from the storms today and tomorrow, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.